So you're about to start on an AI project, but you need some principles and constraints to help constrain what a proof of concept or a pilot might look like. Hi, my name is Peter, and I help organizations with everything around data analytics and AI. And in today's video, I was thinking about how do we best frame up a project, and I thought, well, I've got some ideas, but let's ask ChatGPT to give me its recommended set of maybe principles, constraints we can apply for framing a POC so that we all have the right success out of doing that. So I haven't looked at them in any depth. I'm going to put them on the board, just the first 10, and I'll give you my honest feedback as I go through, and we'll work on maybe a couple that you should definitely be implementing. So here we go. So the first one, which I wholeheartedly agree with, is define success criteria. So I use this all the time, where I want to make sure that what I think is what good looks like and what the customer thinks good looks like is aligned. If we do that early on, we can use that throughout the project and measure, are we heading towards that? And at the end, we are very sure on exactly, did we meet the goals or not? It makes it much more, less subjective, more objective. So that's really useful. The second here is time box, the POC. And again, this is one I'm really a fan of to make sure that these don't go on forever. No one wants a POC that never ends or never gets to a conclusion. I'm a big believer that POCs, and there's different terms for these, you might think of it as proof of value, pilots. I'm going to use the word POC specifically, more of a technical proof of something, which is a lot of this conversation with AI at the moment, is how we know sure it works. And so time boxing that, usually between 1 to 4 weeks, is a really good place to go. If it's going beyond that, it's probably getting too large. ChatGPT says 6 to 12 weeks, so depending on the size of your organization and the time you need to allow, that might be relevant. I like to keep that between 1 to 4 weeks, but you can go bigger, of course. Just make sure you have something in there that says this is when end will be, and then you can use that to evaluate your success criteria. So ChatGPT, prioritize business value. So while a POC focuses on, a lot of the time, how do we know something works or not to make sure it's technically feasible. We also want to ensure that we are prioritizing business value as part of that, and there's something next coming forward. So it's no longer just what IT needs to get out of it. It needs to actually show we're going to do something. And I've got a case in mind at the moment with a customer where it is around their operations. How do we improve that? So framing the success criteria, moving that towards business value is going to be really key. So you're progressing something, not just testing integration or testing something does stuff. Another POC we did recently, very similar. We broke the POC into multiple stages. So there's a little bonus tip here. Maybe bonus stages, they allowed us to do some technical stuff really early, really tightly, but then the second part of that was around more business value orientated. So you can kind of manage those steps there. Number 4, this comes down to really good project management, but it is really important if you're framing principles and constraints, is limit scope creep. I think if you've been involved in any IT project or any project in general, there's always the opportunity for new things to come to light and be added in. And it's so tempting to want to do it, particularly for anyone working on these projects, whether you're doing this in-house, you've got an external provider doing it. It's very tempting to do that, but this might derail you from hitting your timelines and not delivering on the success criteria and missing out on that business value. So as a constraint, make sure strong project management or strong understanding from the team to identify and make those known, and that can be managed. I'm saying don't do them, it's just manage it. So whether it's something that has to be included, it's agreed by the business stakeholders, or it might be something that's flagged in the parking lot for maybe a follow-up or additional time is needed. So again, limit that to make sure you don't have things running over and not hitting outcomes. So use readily available data. Now, the problem we sometimes come across, and certainly what I observe, is that sometimes the data isn't in a usable state or accessible state. Sometimes for instances, an external provider's point of view, coming in access to information might have to go through a range of data controls, additional, generally security checks as we will do work in a customer environment, but maybe some stuff is sensitive. And maybe it's not just sort of, it's hard to trust people external who are, especially IT people, external who maybe been privy to sensitive data. So there could be a range of things that may prevent you from being able to progress because you have access to data. That's so critical. So having access to stuff, even if it's extracts, could be a good way to shortcut that to at least then help you progress and not worry about integrations and so forth. Okay, number 6, ensure data privacy and compliance. So the last thing we want to do is create any breaches. And this is almost always top of mind, even from the outset. We're thinking about what, if we don't bring it up, the customer generally will. To go, how to make sure our data is safe, it's being compliant in Australia, making sure the data is onshore. So there's a range of those sorts of things we will normally go through as a checklist, as a prior to the engagement starting. But making sure everyone's on the same page, I think, is also really critical, and keeping that as a core principle. That what does data privacy mean for the organisation? Might mean no people's names, no identifiable information, and have an agreed definition of what identifiable information is, and meeting compliance requirements that go along with that. And that needs to be then built in to anything that's done to maintain that rigor. Okay, number 7, avoid premature optimization. So let's call it premature, probably made a spelling mistake in there. So it's very tempting to do something and then go, I can make that better, I can make it better. Unless performance is really part of your success criteria, it's probably not important. So I think this is as a development rule, unless there's some obvious bottlenecks or something that's simple that can be agreed. Again, we want to limit our scope creep. If you're keeping in mind your success criteria and does it work versus can it be better, good guiding principle to keep you going forward and keep you out of, spiraling out with time to keep things on track. Okay, number 8 here. Select a minimal viable architecture. I like this one. So you can see there's a bit of a pattern here, right? It's around time. How do we keep things as constrained as possible? And again, the technologist in many people is to create the gold standard for a POC. Unfortunately, sometimes the POC goes into production as well. So some people might be trying to think about the future state or end state at the start of or during the POC. So selecting a minimal viable architecture as part of the process that, again, meets the success criteria and prioritizes business value. If it's reusable and extensible afterwards, I think that's fine. But don't be sort of, it has a minimal viable, might be security controls to meet your compliance requirements. But there might be things in here that is just not, having, unless you're specifically testing, say, load balancing or business continuity DR type scenarios, probably don't need to have redundancy built into your architecture at this stage. So again, that's a really good tip. Thanks ChatGPT for that one. That might be something I'll use more explicitly in the future. Number 9, getting towards the end here, leverage existing tools. Okay, so it's very tempting to create your own stuff. I think while there is, there's lots of things on GitHub repos, there's stuff, as services you could use So really out there example, instead of creating your own LLM, if you're doing an AI project, for example, use something off the shelf like an Azure OpenAI. Really good way, because the data stays in your tenancy, it's protected, you're leveraging existing tools, it's going to certainly take a lot less time to do and get you up for success to then provide that business value. So leveraging existing tools, that was one example. Then starting from scratch is a good way to go. And this one here, number 10, I'm reading it, I'm just going to think about it for a few moments, is ensure model interpretability. Okay, I thought it said interoperability. No, it's interpretability. So I think with anything around AI, I'm talking about AI projects in this list in particular, but a lot of this is transportable outside of AI. With AI explicitly, make sure that the AI model can be interpreted and you can provide definitions. I think this is part of we'll think about with AI projects in general, is understand how do we arrive at that outcome and arrive at that solution, and be able to interpret that and explain the AI model and what it's doing is super critical. So you get the confidence to be able to then start using this in production business context. So there's 10 ideas for you to include when thinking about your AI projects, particularly for a POC, principles, constraints to put into your project to set you up for success. If this was useful, hit the thumbs up button. Be sure to like the video. It lets me know that you like this and it was useful. I can do more of these. And be sure to subscribe for any future videos. And I'll see you next time.